Welcome along everyone to class 2 of our Consultations Masterclass. So you'll see I am here with Dario and my name is Lou if you have not met me. Very shortly I'll do some official introductions. But as you're all rolling on, we have jumped on bang on 7, which is, or 7 I should say in Australia Eastern Time. But bang on time, which is awesome. We'll give you all a minute or two to roll on in. And I did just want to call out that if you do have questions as we are going through this live, please ask them. I'll be keeping an eye on the questions coming in if you see my head popping down. And so I'll be able to ask Dario those as we're moving through the presentation as well. It's awesome, awesome, awesome to have it interactive together. So definitely there's an invitation there for that. Now, week 2. So for those of you that joined us for week 1, thank you so much for coming along. And if you have not seen week 1, you can pop into our series on Facebook or Instagram and you can watch week 1, which is all about who Dario is and his fabulous story in the hair industry over there. Now, week 2, class 2 of our 8-week series, happening every Wednesday like we have today, 7 p.m. Australia Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Over in New Zealand, or early in the morning, 9-10 a.m. in the UK, depending on daylight savings. So I will be having a conversation with Dario, who we have right here with me. And we are going to be talking about all things hair, inspiration, motivation, tips, tricks, you name it. So as we go through tonight's class, we will be talking about the theme of Be the Change, and I'll get into a wee bit more of that very shortly. But before we start, I just wanted to highlight the fact that this week has been a very, very exciting week for Dario. So Dario, as some of you may know, on Sunday night, Dario won the Best Educator of the Year Individual Award at the 2020 AHIAs. So that is just such an achievement, and I would like for us to all give you a very big round of applause.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Huge congratulations. And second year in a row, is that right?
Yeah, well, this was the AHIAs, and which we've never entered before. But last year we were very humbled to win the AHFAs.
Educator.
Educator. And, you know, it's amazing to get recognised by our peers, and particularly having 2 teenage daughters, to recognise that Dad's a little bit cool, because it's very hard to get street credibility with 2 teenagers. So yeah, they were involved. It was online. It was pretty amazing to watch it online and be around the family at home. So yeah, very grateful. Very grateful.
Awesome. No, huge congratulations from all of us at Timely, and I'm sure the community that is watching with us right now as well. So just amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who have not met me before, my name is Lou Court and I'm Timely's social media specialist. So I'm the one that delivers our brand to you, our beautiful online community. So it's through doing things like these lives, sometimes doing HIT classes and so on. So I'm sure a few of you will be starting to get familiar with my friends. Now, as I mentioned, this is class 2, Be the Change. And so in this class, Dario will be teaching us all about improving yourself and changing your life. So I am going to hand over to you, Dario, to take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll let you put the presentation on the screen and we'll get going. So welcome everybody. One of the biggest, we'll go into the main section now. Next slide. One of the biggest things that, you know, when we look at, I suppose, as hairdressers, what are the challenges that we face in the salon, and what are the challenges that we face within ourselves personally? And I really find that, you know, we can have goals and we can have an intention. And one thing I found this quote quite a long time ago, and I thought, you know, if we're going to try and change, we've got to be the change. We can't think the change. We've got to actually be it, because we've got to action it. And so what you see on screen, which I think this highlights, you know, 1 in 4 are affected by mental illness. 8.6 million adults have suicidal thoughts. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of deaths between 15 and 19. And people of, you know, I find that children with anxiety disorders have least likely to receive treatment. And I teach a lot of people, and I'm very passionate about this topic because I see a lot of anxiety out there. And we're in a world where we're, you know, I think we get into hairdressing, we want to be liked. And I find that sometimes we can lower our sense of self to be liked. And one thing I've realized after 31 years of experience, it's about being respected, not being liked. So I really focus on my content, cutting through and making sure that my guest, my salon client, knows that I'm really making this about her. And so when we talk about anxiety, it's coming up a lot, but it's been around for years. I just think it's much more socially acceptable to talk about it now, which is fantastic. There is a lot of breathing techniques. There's a lot of things that I teach. I have 2 teenage daughters, so I do see the pressure that they're under because they're in a world of perfection. And we're living in a world where everything's nice and glossy and very real and fast moving in terms of social. So so I'm really excited to present this tonight because it's a really important topic, and one that I think highlights the fact that, you know, when we think about communication and consultations, or even being creative, we have to have permission to create our art and do the work that we love to do. And if we don't have permission to do that, or we don't have no tension with our client, then we can't do it. You know, if we've got tension, then we have fear. And so what I like to teach and advocate is to help hairdressers with a toolbox and helping them understand themselves first before they can understand a client. Because sometimes I find hairdressers, we transfer what we're feeling onto others, and it's not necessarily what we're getting from the client. It's generally what we're picking up from ourselves. So this whole presentation tonight is for you to get closer to you so you can understand yourself on a much deeper level, so that you can work to your true potential or potentially unlock your potential. So we'll go to the next slide. If you don't mind.
Amazing. I'm just going to say this is one that I personally have been very, very excited to join, and it is something I think that all of us, you know, it's something that a lot of us have been getting closer to over the past 6-7 months of what we've been going through. So it's really timely having you join us for this. Yeah,
thank you. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, when I'm talking to our clients about it, particularly my friends in Melbourne, this is really on point in terms of getting us all ready to get back into the salon. Because we can get overwhelmed with our thoughts, and we can ruminate a lot about, we can future think too much. And I try to be as present as possible. So I'll kick on with the presentation. One thing I realized with our research, there's a vacuum inside of all of us, and we believe with things that feeling of loneliness will disappear. So it doesn't disappear for most. Even when we're not hungry, we eat. We buy things we really don't need. We waste time binge watching on TV, or to avoid our own suffering. So this is why we consume so much. And this is all due to our home being neglected. And one thing when I talk about homes means you. And what I learned, I meditate once a day, and I meditate for about 20 minutes. And meditation's really transformed. You don't have, you know, it's not about sitting on a rock and, you know, with chime bells. It's really about quietening your mind and trying to not create more chatter, and just allowing yourself to go inward and find that sense of peace and calm. And that's where I find that I'm most effective as a hairdresser, is when I'm absolutely calm and I'm absolutely having fun with what I do, not necessarily provoked or provoking myself or pushing myself. My hands are really relaxed when I'm styling hair, when I was doing magazines, and when I'm styling in the salon. So so to get yourself clean up your home is really coming down to your mantra breath. And what I've learned is that there's 2 types of mantra breaths. So if you're one that suffers from anxiety, or you generally find yourself erratic in your thinking, is that I go back to my breath. So when I breathe in for 4. So let's do it together. Okay, so you're going to do it with me, Lou?
Yes, absolutely. I was honestly just going to say.
Yeah, it's so important.
It's amazing. I've just started doing my yoga teacher training, and I've just started doing a daily meditation practice. So it's
the best. It's something that I really look forward to, because it's me time. And, you know, we give so much of ourselves to people, and it's just about recharging the body and the mind, most importantly. So when we breathe in, it's about really breathing in for 4 seconds. So let's do it together. I'll get my clock. So if we breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe, and then we hold for 4, And then as we breathe out, and then we breathe out for 6 seconds. So we breathe it out for 6 seconds. Now, the point here is that when you breathe in, what I'd like you to start saying in terms of your intention is, the air is cleaning my mind. So you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then breathe out for 6. And when you breathe out, I'd like you to say, I'm releasing all the tension from my body. And if you get into that cycle every sort of half an hour, and, I used to have an Apple Watch until about 3 weeks ago because I gifted it to my daughter because I was very proud of her achievements. Yeah, she's in shock. I think she's still in shock. But I gifted it to her because I'm so proud of her. She's an amazing singer at school, and I wanted to show her how much, and then that only upset my other daughter. So I had to give her something too. We're a generous family in the way we make each other feel, but I've never really done something like that. So I wanted to show her how proud we are. But so what I've shared with you is a mantra breath for someone that has a lot of anxiety. Now, if you're someone that's okay and you're pretty level and you occasionally get stressed, then what I'd recommend is rhythmic breathing, which is 4 seconds in. So we breathe in 4, and then you hold for 4 and breathe out for 4, and really extend your breath out for 4. So that's just normal rhythmic breathing. Same breath in, hold, and then same breath out. And if you do that and you have that mantra behind, the air is cleaning my mind, and then when you breathe out, I'm releasing all the tension from my body. The way I've learned is our brains are like our brains are like the most resourceful microchip, and the body's like an old computer. So the body listens to what the brain tells it. And if the brain's telling the body to relax, the body will relax. We've got to give it permission. I think sometimes what we're doing is we're listening to our mind too much, though, that monkey mind, and it's going off, and we're ruminating and thinking about things that don't really exist. So I try and get back to that stillness, and I find myself, and this is another bonus tip that I love working on, is being mindful. Like when I'm having dinner or breakfast, is to really stop and taste your food and be mindful about being present, that, we've got this beautiful gift of, enjoyment in front of us, and let's enjoy it. Because I found as a hairdresser, we were racing every time opportunity we had something to eat. We were just racing, putting food in for energy. We weren't really enjoying it. And then that led me to, listening to people, which we're going to talk about tonight. And, when I listen to an intention to be really understand the other person. And when I'm looking at something, I want to understand it. And when I'm listening and looking, and all of this is about discovery and using all our senses. And I think sometimes we're so busy that we don't connect with our senses, which is a shame, because we're missing out on a lot more, I believe, in life. So what I've just shared with you is, if you set yourself free as a practice of freedom. So this is about unlocking ourselves from the world and really getting connected with us. Because I find we're all so busy trying to get connected, but we're not connected. And that's what I found, and it works really well for me, because inner peace is the new wealth for me. I can have clients that are extremely wealthy, or I go to the business class lounge in Qantas when I travel, and they're the most unhealthy people that you can see. They just don't look well. And then we go, well, what's the cost benefit? Hairdressing for me, it's an amazing lifestyle. And I get to hang out with really cool people, but I also am more aware of how important it is to be mindfully well, and as well as physically well. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, but loneliness is the most important part. If you can sit in a room and not have music on and be okay with yourself, then you're pretty good. But if you can't be alone by yourself, then there's things that I think we're not answering within ourselves. So that's the questions that come up. So we'll go to the next slide if you don't mind. So nourishment, this is amazing. So when we say something that lifts us up, we're feeding love and compassion. So when we speak in a way that causes tension and anger, we're nourishing suffering. So this is about how we choose to communicate. I was sharing this today in a class this morning, a beautiful class. It really doesn't matter what the client's coming in like. If the client's coming in tense or angry, it's about the altitude we want to bring them up to as far as where we're at. Because we're creating an experience. I call our salons, we're selling happiness, and we're a weight loss center. We're not a hairdressing salon. And so I really look at the experience that we're giving clients. It's a transformation experience, and I believe it's mostly energetic as well as the physical change in terms of hair. So we all have a choice on how we want to live. And some people don't realize they have a choice on how, being, from victim to ownership. So we need to observe and not absorb by being present and thinking with compassion. So this is a great one. When you've got a client coming in that's fairly tense and wants to transfer how hard it was to find parking, or how she was late. All these things that happen is I don't absorb it. I observe it, but I don't absorb it. And I do this really great technique where I put my tongue up behind my gum and I move it, just tickle my gum a little bit. And when I'm dealing with someone that's quite projecting onto me and that's quite not in a good headspace, I move my tongue slightly with my mouth closed. And what that does, it distracts my mind from really deep listening, where I'm listening, but I'm not listening with my soul to the point where I'm lowering my battery levels, because I don't want to write myself off on my first, second, third experience with my guests. I'm really careful about my energy. And as you get older, you really want to be careful where you choose to put your energy, because you've only got so much of it. And you want to make sure that when you give it to someone, it's really well received. So what you read, what you write, what you say can help you feel nourished. So here's my challenge to everyone watching this. No matter what life dishes you and no matter what clients say to you, how you respond says a lot about you and where you're at. If you do catch yourself out, it's largely because we're not quite there yet. We're perhaps in this marathon and we're trying to get to that point. And it is a marathon. There's no such thing as perfection. I'm far from perfect. I've got a family, 2 teenage daughters, and I find it very hard to pull away a little bit and sort of in the sidelines because we're a very engaged family. But I'm very, very connected to whatever I say has to make me feel nourished. And if it makes me feel nourished, it makes the other person feel nourished. And that's the key here. It's put yourself first. So love for me equals nourishing. So go to the next slide.
I feel like the things that are so helpful as well when people are tuning in and watching these things is these practical tools. It's like a toolkit.
Yeah.
Away. And that is fascinating, the idea of taking yourself out of deep listening. You're still listening, you're still there, but just putting that bit of a barrier in with something like a tickle on the inner gum. Is that right?
Top gum. But you got to have your mouth closed, because I've seen people do it and I'm like, that's sending out the wrong message. You're doing. That is sending out the wrong message. But, just highlighting what we were saying there, if you're practicing nourishment, you're feeding your soul. And if you're feeding your soul, your energy is transmitting onto your guests that you're a really cool person to hang out with, because confidence is very hard to get. And self-confidence, self-love, and self-kindness is something that I feel we all need to practice more. But I find that most people, are hurting each other because they're hurting themselves. And, I have clients coming in and they could be running late and they could be quite projecting onto me and quite not nice, but I don't take it on. And I sort of crouch down near them and I said, wow, I've been looking forward to seeing you all day. And I absolutely can't wait to spoil you in the next 45 minutes. Now you talk in a nourishing way, but you've got to talk via your heart. Yeah. And this leads me to compassion. You will change that person's behavior within 1.5 to 2 minutes, because they'll go, wow, clearly it's me, it's not you, because you haven't joined the party. But the minute you join the party, it becomes a you thing, because now it becomes deflective. Now it's, you're making the noise or energy. So compassion is really important. So loving yourself is the basis of compassion. Compassion arises when you understand your own suffering. So it's a beautiful practice of awakening. When you're listening, you're producing more compassion inside yourself. And so this is my favorite line: you're always protected with your compassion. So this is so important. I lean forward with a glass jaw when I'm asking really important questions. And this fundamentally is the key in hairdressing. I don't nod my head to something I don't understand. I don't agree with something I don't understand. And I love to challenge my client, but with compassion. I have heard over the years people assuming that I'm either arrogant or rude, purely because most people don't like the honesty. And I think of life as we've got one life to live, and how important it is it to be direct and have a straight bat when we communicate with guests about what I'm hearing or what I understand, and repeating it back to the client. So what I understand from you is this, and asking the guest to have an opportunity to clear up perhaps what she's being grey about. And I do love direct, because what happens if you're not direct and clients are direct, you'll assume they're being rude, and they're not being rude. It's the fact that they're getting frustrated that perhaps we're not being a great communicator. And so for me to be a great communicator, the first and foremost is to communicate with compassion, which is an intuitive non-verbal, because your body has to move with your words. And if you're talking without your heart, your client will feel that it doesn't have the right intention. So therefore you'll go, well, this doesn't work. You have to really believe in yourself. I'll give you an example. When you get up in the morning and you're putting your socks on to your underwear, if you've got a hole in your sock, that says a lot about how non-compassionate you are, or perhaps no self-love. So you've got to really think about the armor that you're putting on in your day. If you're wearing a shade of black that's the wrong shade of black, well, is that the message that I'm pushing out into the world, that I have no self-care? I'm really passionate about hairdressers because I really believe, I mean, this industry's changed my life. It's been the best thing. I've done it for 31 years. But what I'm seeing fundamentally not happen in hairdressing is that I'm seeing a lot of people not understanding it's about them. See, if you go to work and you're looking amazing, a bit like what you do when you go out, or we used to go out, is that you're projecting, I'm living my best life. Yeah. And what I'm going to sell to you today is happiness because I'm living it. But if most hairdressers go to work and they look like they need their hair done, or perhaps they haven't got makeup on, and perhaps they haven't got the right color, what they're sharing with the guests is that things are a little bit chaotic here. And you know, I'd probably play it safe today and ask for something simple. And so we might say with our mouth, let's do something different, but the client with her eyes is saying, no go. And so when we're talking with compassion and we back it up with our physiology of what we believe in terms of what we're dressing, it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be tastefully done. Like the way we navigate the way what we're wearing, the palette, all communicating. But most importantly, with compassion, you have to have open arms when you're communicating. You can't be closed in. So when I'm communicating with someone that's perhaps a little bit brittle, I generally have my palms open and I have them directed up. And I've got many stories about this, and it's too long for this this live. But open palms, compassion, you're always protected. So we'll move on to the next slide.
Yeah.
So this leads me to the predator client, and I love your emoji that you guys put in there. That's pretty awesome.
You feel the energy of that emoji quite
Yeah, I do. I just, you know, every hairdresser right now is looking at, I know that person. I know that person. And look, I was talking again this morning. I did a session this last night as well. The predator client or guest is a deeply unhappy person. And this could be, you know, everyone's got something in life that we don't understand people's pain. You know, they could have lost someone, lost something, could have gone through so much trauma and pain. And what I find people do is they stockpile their hurt down and pack it down until the body can't take it anymore. And that's what I find when clients come in and they go, you know, that last color was really bad. And they're coming, like they're talking to you like you're across the road or you're across the salon. It's really like, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. And it sends out a vibration that's a little bit cutting. And it's almost like a bit of a bark in terms of your soul. And so what I generally do is when I have a predator coming in, I'm fully aware that this person's leading from hurt and pain. And so that's got nothing to do with me. And I feel that as hairdressers, we can heal if we're healed. Because we're touching on a lot of things as a hairdresser. There's part psychologist, there's therapists. I don't go into these things with my clients because I'm not qualified to answer my client's problems. If my client goes, starts talking about her life, I'll stop the conversation. And this brings me up to boundaries. I have a lot of boundaries when I work because you cannot bring other people's problems into your life as well as dealing with your life situation. So if someone gets out of bounds, I'll just simply say, oh, look, I'm really not qualified to answer that. And you're probably best off speaking to an expert. I just don't feel comfortable giving you advice because I'm not qualified. And that's an open palms. And the client's like, oh, sorry. But if you go down that rabbit hole too far with your guest, your relationship will be built on therapy and transferring onto you, and you won't enjoy seeing her, and your energy levels will go down very quickly. So if you lead from hurt and smallness, you have no self-worth. So if you have a client in the salon and she's touching her hair a lot while you're talking to her, well, she's lacking in confidence. You know, that hair is everything to her. And so we've got to lead, and we can sometimes misassume, we can assume that she's arrogant, but this lady's got no confidence. I mean, I saw it on Saturday. I had a casting. I did a shoot on Monday for Timely, and it was an amazing shoot, which you guys will see very soon. And I had a casting. It was really beautiful. And actually what I'll do is I'll pop something up on our Insta, a little snippet after this, so you can see a little bit of it. But this model came in and she looked like she was angry. And I just looked at her and I went, oh, you poor little thing. You are so scared to be in my minimal salon right now. And I just gave her so much love and compassion. And then she started relaxing. She came up to my altitude and she thought, it's really safe to be in my care. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
It's about making people feel safe. And they can only feel safe if you feel safe, in your care. And so how I get rid of a predator, and I just want to share this with viewers, is not everyone's your people and not everyone's my people. Some people are absolutely stuck on misinterpreting you. So they're not my people that like to try and pick holes in your personality or potentially pick on the way you do things. They either get you or they don't. And if they don't, then perhaps I just step aside and I recommend them to someone that potentially in the salon that you work in that might be more personality aligned. So just to give you some brief stories, we've had clients out of 31 years. I've had a lot of clients. I wish in my first year I counted every client. That was a goal of mine when I was in my first year. I'm going to count every single client. And clearly I was a nerd when I was younger, but as I got busier, I stopped counting. But the predator client for me is one that I always keep aware of. Every day I go to work, I check in with this. Today, I'm going to protect myself. I do it, for me, at the beginning of every day, I do an intention talk for the day. When I'm going into the salon, I say to myself, I want to change someone's life today. I want to give someone a beautiful makeover today. I really want my client to awaken today with this beautiful haircut that I'm going to give her. And if you walk into work with an intention to give, boy, do your clients feel. Because energy it's the most beautiful thing. You can give someone energy and time. They are the two most important commodities that I see in the space that we work in. And so when you have a predator is someone that makes you feel really uncomfortable and is potentially really rude to you. So if you're a younger hairdresser watching this and someone's trying to ask you to do something that you're not comfortable doing, what I'd encourage you to do is ask what they're asking, get a real clear picture of what they want. And then just at the end, say to the guest, look, what you're asking for is above my experience level. And what I'd like to do is just see who's available to look after you that's above my experience level. If you just give me a moment. That's being really truth to power. And this is about really living in that honesty space. Your guest might say, well, what can you do? You could say, I do classically beautiful hair, but what you're asking for is really my boss's level or our art director's level. So let me see who's available when they're next available. And that's the biggest lesson that I can give younger people. Because we often say yes to things that, when we're younger, we can't do because we're being a people pleaser. And the predator loves people like that. Because the minute the predator doesn't get what they want, all their anger and hurt that they've been stockpiling comes straight to the surface. And unfortunately, you'll be the person that cops all of that. Now, if you have a client that's being really toxic, and we do have these people that you cannot help, unfortunately, is that I do go through the whole consultation. And I say to them at the end, what they've asked for is outside my aesthetic and beyond my experience level. And I write down another hairdressing salon name on the card and probably a hairdresser that I know that would love to do this type of work. And I just lean right into it with compassion and say, look, what you've asked for is outside my experience level. And I put my ego to the side. It's not about me being judging me. I don't care what the world thinks of me. I care about what I think of me. And what I want to do is I want to make sure I send this client to the right person. So that's my intention. And I lead forward, I give her my card with that person's name and salon. And I say, look, I'd really strongly recommend that you see, say, Brian at Brian's salon. And the client will then get confused and look at you and say, oh, but so you're not cutting my hair. And she'll probably get angry because she'll perceive it as rejection. And what you do is you lean right forward and you say, oh, I hope you understand that I understand how much people save up to get their haircuts, and I know how important it is for them. And I'd like you to go to the right person. So you spend your hard-earned money with the right person and you do it once instead of going somewhere else to get it fixed up. And then you get up and you walk them to the door and you say, it's an absolute pleasure meeting you today. And I wish you all the best with Brian. You don't sit there and you wait for the reaction. See, you're in charge of how you react and how you behave. It's not what the client's going to say. It's what you're going to do. No matter what she says to you, you're going to be so polite to her. You know why? Because you're very motivated to get this very toxic person out of your space. And that is fundamentally the motivation. And I'm always aware to get out of the way of someone that wants to walk over my spirit. So they're not my people. So this is really important. Whatever you fight strengthens, and whatever you resist persists. And what stands in the way becomes the way. So if you allow a predator to come in every 8 weeks and really make you feel bad and make you feel really low, then that's our fault. And I will share this with you. I really woke up at Sharon Ma's funeral in 2006, an amazing hairdresser, 42 years old, with 2 beautiful children under the age of 6. And when I walked back to my salon after her funeral, I thought to myself, wow, you know, the role that we play as hairdressers, we have one life. And I made this commitment to myself that I would treat every single appointment like a dinner party experience, a one-on-one, making it very meaningful for me. So at the end of the day, I have 6 to 8 people walking away thinking about that was a really, really beautiful moment that we had today, versus that was just a haircut. And the choice is all of ours on how we choose to act or respond. And I like to talk about the predator because I think it's something that people assume, and this is before we go on, people can sometimes say, don't get it confused with the client pushing you a predator. See, some people have a much more sophisticated eye. And I've learned this when I was younger. I had clients that had well-traveled and they'd been around the world many times. They worked for luxury brands like Gucci, Burberry, Louis Vuitton. And they were teaching me to come up. And so we might call them rude, but they're not rude. They're just fussy. And so I'll give you a challenge. Anytime you've got a client being fussy, I want you to think of this, is that client's paying for my next holiday, my mortgage, my car, or my kids to go to a nice school. And you'll find a deeper motivation on how to deal with that client that's being fussy. Yeah. And I think that's what I remind myself every time I've got someone that's a little bit challenging. As long as they're not rude or toxic, then I'll still look after their hair. But the minute they go off grid and out of bounds, that's when I have rules on how I engage clients. So this is something I'm very passionate about talking about because I see too many young people leave hairdressing because they don't fundamentally understand how to deal with these people. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so deep listening. Oh my God, this is my favorite. It really is. These are all the things that are going on in our heads. You know, like I was talking to someone recently and we're in this class and I said to her, what are your thoughts on what we just said? She goes, well, I'm more worried about what you're thinking about. And I went like what I said before, and she's thinking what I'm reacting to what she said. And I thought, wow, shouldn't imagine if we were waiting, you know, if it comes out of your mouth and it's come via your heart, your filter, and it feels right, it's meant to be right. You know, and that's where experience comes in. You know, I've had a lot of learnings. You can call them mistakes, but I call them experiences. And, you know, where I've gone, okay, wouldn't say that again, wouldn't do that again. And that's really great that you learn from it. And that's what I love about it. And deep listening, we'll go to the next slide. This is really cool, really cool. So listening with purpose. So on the left, we have selective listening, which is pretty much our whole industry. And I'll confess, you know, in your 20s, it's all about you. And if you're a teenager, it's all about you. And the client's in the background. So the client might say to you things like, oh, look, I'm going on holidays next year. I booked it. And then you cut them off and say, I'm going on holidays too. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about us. It's about them. And so then we go to active listening, which is more about bringing the client into the circle. And it's bringing them in. So, you know, you're probably bringing them in about 40%, but you're still dominating. But empathetic listening is where you bring the core center of the circle. And this is where your life will change. See, I've had clients be extremely rude to me because they've got pain, trauma, that they're misdirecting. But I'll listen to it and I'll protect myself with some of the tips that I've shared with you. And when I finish, I'll then give them advice about their hair. And every single time they will always say, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for caring. Because I think it's something we don't do. I think we often listen to reply versus listen to understand. And so deep listening will bring you closer to people. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so deep listening, if we seek to understand, to be understood. So that's my main purpose in life. I feel that we go to the movies to really engage with the outside world. Whereas a hairdresser, every single client is like a movie. They've got a story. Every single person coming to you can be a mentor for you if you ask the right questions. And I'm always impressed. Once you start touching the nerve of what that person cares about, ask them like an interview on on a talk show in LA. Think of yourself of like whether it be Jimmy Kimmel or whether it be someone that you like. Interview your clients, and if you can understand your client's suffering, you can help them. So ask them a simple thing like this in the beginning of the consultation: what's really bugging you about your hair at the moment, or what's annoying you about your hair, or what would you like to improve about your hair? So if you can understand their suffering, straight away you'll know what you've got to fix, and you've really finited it down to, great, I've just got to provide a solution for that problem. Imagine saying to a client when she's finished, I want to understand you more today. I want to go deeper on a deeper level to really find out what's going to work for you as more of a sustainable haircut and color. So when you listen with compassion, our clients are open to share. And that's what I love, because when they share, that's where the information is. The power is in that information. So deep listening is a wonderful practice that will change your life for the better. So you may not like what your client's saying. You may not agree with what your client's saying. My tip to you when your people are talking to you, particularly early on in the consult, is not to nod your head. If you nod your head in a consult, particularly if you're talking to a European, the European will look at you and take, especially if she's visual in her modality, she'll look at you and she'll take that you get what she's saying. So you've got an agreement framework that's non-verbal. She'll assume you're agreeing with her. So she'll stop listening to you. She goes, you get it, but you don't get it. You're just nodding your head so you can get to the point. So
Interesting.
Yeah, I just found there's so many different cues. And before we go on, I just want to share you this story. This is really interesting in consult. This girl that I teach in Melbourne, amazing hairdresser. She had this lady come in for a blow dry. This is a very well-known salon in Melbourne, very reputable, beautiful style and great reputation and standard. And this lady came in and she said, I want this beautiful wave, beachy wave. Mm-hmm. And she said, I don't want any hot tools used on my hair. And then she's like, well, that's what we use. She goes, no, I don't want a tong. I don't want an iron. I want you to do a pin curl set, which is like an old school blow dry. And you wrap the hair into, semicircle. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more labor intensive. Mm-hmm. And the hairdresser didn't have the confidence to say to the guest, this is what she should have said. She should have said to the guest, what attracted you to our salon? And the guest would have said, your Instagram, I love all the images you have. And what the hairdresser should have said at that point, well, this is how we get those results here. So we need to use those tools. That's how we get the result. And she should have stuck by her philosophy of how she, gets her results. I don't go into the kitchen and ask, how is my food being prepared at a really nice restaurant? And we're allowing clients into the kitchen, and that's really where we're working. And so what happened with this movie, with this girl, as I say, every experience is like a movie, is that at the end, when the girl was halfway through it, the client was hissing at her. The client was a bit like, like she could tell she wasn't liking how it was going. And at the end, when she was brushing it out, she called the manager over and she said to the manager, I'm not paying for this because clearly it's not going to last. And the girl thought the client was being annoying. And I said, no, the client had every right to be upset, because you've got to stand for something as a hairdresser. You have to have boundaries. You have to have experience boundaries. And I like to call it my lane. And that's my experience lane. I don't go outside it. So if someone asks me to cut their hair in a way that I don't feel comfortable with, like I don't like brutalism hairdressing that makes women look unattractive. That's just my aesthetic. I don't do it. Even if my client begs me to do it, I just don't do it, because I need to be happy about what I'm putting out into the world as much as my client. I don't go to a professional that does minimalistic design in terms of architecture and ask them to do something that's quite opposite. They won't take me on as a client. And so everything's about knowing. I wouldn't go to Peter Lindbergh when he was alive, the photographer, one of the best black and white photographers in the world, and ask him to shoot a campaign in color.
Yeah.
And so when we put out there what we're really good at,
and
you're really understanding what we are. But deep listening is very, very important, because with the information is where you have the power. It's really good. So we'll go to the next one.
Awesome.
Okay, so mind care. So mind care is like our skin. It protects us. So we have to protect ourselves and bring joy to ourselves and others. Ourselves first. Mind care is about bringing your attention to what's going on in you and around you. So one of the tips that I do with clients in consult and when I'm engaging in life is that, people are highly offensive, because I find a lot of people are unconsciously walking around. They're not very conscious, because it takes a lot of energy to be conscious. And that's why I learned I'm going to charge more because I give more. And I really value the time that I give to people, and I want to be remunerated. I want to be compensated accordingly to what I put in. That's what happens. You shouldn't use big words.
I honestly went to almost give it as well, and I was like, wait, no, I'm not going to get that right.
Yeah. Especially if it doesn't roll out, it's like, no, pass, delete. But the idea is that I really value, as hairdressers, I was 4 years in apprenticeship. Most now are 3, some are 2. Now, you can go to, I have clients that are specialists that have done 3 years in studying and they're seen as an expert in their field. And I really love the fact that as hairdressers, we're qualified but only if we have mind care and we appreciate the hard work we've done, and then others will appreciate the work that you bring or the value that you bring for people. And it's, like I said in the early part of this talk tonight, it's about we're selling happiness. And the only way we can sell happiness, and I've heard this a lot in my career, is people say you got to fake it till you make it. And I said, not at all. You've just got to be the change. You've got to be it. And you've got to be living proof, consistent, that you are the real deal. And that takes a lot of fear. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be willing to fail. You've got to be willing to admit that it could have been a better cut or color. Yes, it didn't come out quite right, but give me another chance. And I've seen many times when clients have had their hair done in my salon and, over 31 years and someone's assumed that, the mistake happened because the climber zone was on her hair and someone took the climber zone off. And that's actually what saved her hair from breaking. And I had to be very honest with the client, but I did it with care. I showed the client how much I cared about her and her hair, and the client was so happy at the end. So you can flip things around only if you listen to them first, because a lot of their stories most of it's got nothing to do with you, but you have to listen to it because you put yourself in that position. So yeah, next slide. Okay, so overthinking. Oh my God, this is the most important topic of the whole talk. So self-talking is running commentary of what you perceive. Please understand of what you perceive, not actually what's going on. I really think this. So stop thinking and talking and just be in the present moment. This gives us space to listen to others. So I don't assume what my client will want when she comes in. I don't assume that she's in a bad mood. I don't assume I don't future think. I used to, and it used to make me anxious. I used to do this a lot before photo shoots. I used to get really anxious before a photo shoot, and I realized I waste so much energy. So if you can't communicate with yourself, how can you listen to others? So some people say, well, I just don't, I can't do that. So, well, it's a discipline. It's it's an hourly discipline. And when people talk to me, I often say to myself, is this a me thing or a we thing? And so when someone's offending me, I don't overthink about it. I just think, is this a me thing or a we thing? Because if it's a me thing, it's my ego. If it's a we thing, then she's gone out of my boundaries if she's being offensive. So when you produce a thought, only you are responsible for it. This is my main tip to hairdressers. When you have your great idea, that lightning bolt, please don't cut your client off. Allow it to store it, because sometimes we cut off the most beautiful moment in a client talking to us, what's important, and we go, and we lightning bolt, and they can't forget they forget their train of thought. And I see that a lot in dinner parties. I think what hairdressing has taught me is to really read people. It's taught me to become emotionally intelligent. And that's something that a lot of people aren't. They can't read where things are going. They think, they walk out of a meeting and go, that was a great meeting. And I was like, that was a horrible meeting. But overthinking is just a waste of time, because you can't control things that are out of your control. You can only control what you think and what you say. And they're the two fundamental things that I want you to focus on. So don't waste energy on overthinking. So we'll go to the next one. Loving speech. Oh my God, this is the best. So if you speak through your heart, love is in your voice. So people often say, I've had this a lot with people in my career. They go, oh, you're just lucky because you've got confidence, or you've got a swagger, or you've got a gift of the gab. And I just go, oh my God, are you serious? At 14, 15, 16, 17, I couldn't look people in the eye. I was a very shy kid. I was school captain by default in year 6. And when I say default, I didn't even know how the school picked me. And that was a big moment in my life in terms of confidence, but I was really not a confident kid. I wasn't great at school. I wasn't into school. I left school at the end of year 9 to start hairdressing full time. I'd already been doing it 6 months. And my thing is what hairdressing brought me was a real connection to improving people's self-worth, to improving the way people look in the mirror at themselves, perhaps for the first time, and like what they see. And that's just an amazing gift that you can give people. And it's a drug that is so addictive. And so when we think of, if you want love directed towards you, then we have to direct it towards everyone in an unconditional way, not conditional. Because I hear people say, well, I'm nice to everyone, but nobody's nice back to me. We shouldn't expect it from people. We should just give it, because it leaves us, whatever we say it stays within us. And when people talk to me and I'm in a very good headspace, it's like Teflon. It doesn't stick. But it really doesn't. But if you're in a selfish, egoic state where it's about me, of course it's going to stick. It's going to actually smudge in there and smear in there. So if you choose your words carefully for each person and you communicate and speak in a gentle way, this will nourish the other person. It shows how much you care about them. And I learned this years ago. We employed a guy called Jason, and Jason used to be the marketing manager of Weller in Australia. And Jason was our new general manager for our business. And on Jason's first day, Jason really challenged me in a meeting. And when he left the meeting, I was talking to another marketing manager that we had, and I just went, I don't know if he's going to work out. And then a lightning bolt happened, and I ran to Jason's office and I went, Jason. And he went, yes, because he knew he crossed the line. And I said with loving speech, Jason, I want you to push back to me like that every single day. Wow. You care about my business so much. You're willing, you put yourself on the line on the first day. And that was a tipping point for me. So we often mistaken someone caring as being rude.
Yeah.
And if particularly with staff members, when they care about our business so much, I allow them the platform to speak. I want to hear what they need to say. I don't want yes people around me, nor do my clients want yes people around them, especially when they think they look hot and then someone takes a photo of them and tags them, put them on Facebook. And then they're like, no ego, no filter. They're like, is that how I look? And the bubbles popped. So loving speech. So my question to everyone watching this, are you a low resolution person or a high resolution person? So low resolution person talks like this. What would you like today? What are we doing today? That's a low resolution question. A high resolution question is saying, hi, Mary, it's been 11 weeks since I've seen you last. And we did our beautiful maxi shape. And I'm not going to ask how you're going with your hair because you're 3 weeks overdue, but how are you? That's a high resolution question. There are so many statements in that one question for your client to wake up to the reality. You're here to play ball.
Yeah, they feel the interest and the care that you're putting out completely.
Yeah, it's very personalized. And I tell every guest that this haircut has a maximum life of 8 weeks. Anything past it will expire. And I let people know. So particularly anyone watching that does color, this is very important. So if you have a client comes in 16 weeks or 12 weeks or 10 weeks, your client please don't ask, how did you go with your color? Because most of our clients are like Dory and they're not going to be remembering what the color was like 10 weeks ago. People can't even remember what was said 5 minutes ago, let alone what was an hour ago. So if you ask a client, again, this is low resolution, how was your color last time? She's going to talk about the last 2 weeks of her color. She's going to be like, yeah, it wasn't that great. And you're going to be like, oh, we'll do something different. But it didn't need to be different. She just needed to come in a bit earlier for her maintenance. And again, are you a high or a low resolution question? So this is a very reflective moment. So you have to train yourself to be a better communicator with deep listening, loving speech, so we can heal the world one client at a time. And I really feel that when you heal your clients have glasses that are much clearer. They actually see themselves for who they are, not in a filtered lens. And that's what that's why I love about being honest with people, because you have a sustainable relationship, not a client that's going to move around to different salons because you don't get her. You want to get her on a much deeper level. Okay, so we'll go to the next one.
All right.
Okay, so ego next week. How quick did that go?
I know.
Oh my God. I so want to do ego right now.
I'm bringing us back. I'm bringing us back.
So did you enjoy that?
That was amazing. That was amazing. And I do actually have a question that came through from Angela, which we said we'd wait to the end for it.
Yeah, thank you.
Earlier in the presentation, Angela asked, do you ever do a personality trait quiz when employing staff? So to get a feel for how they may respond to situations, energy, and so on.
Yeah. And it's something that, again, I'll give you an example. Like, I remember one guy came in to work for us, and he was coming from a really well-known salon. And all he did in the interview was talked about how he wanted to work in Paris or Milan.
Mm-hmm.
Not once mentioned how he wanted to work in my salon. And so I didn't want to get in his way. And so we do a lot of things. We do a lot of things which I'll happily share. Like, if people private message us, I'll happily share things with them. My email address is dario@dcieducation.com. So that's dario@dcieducation.com. I'll happily share with you our policy and procedures. I'll email it to you. I actually have no problem with that. The idea behind sharing here is that I really love elevating the industry, and I'm very passionate because we're all much better together. And if we're all doing better, and I'll give you this last tip. When I worked for Tony and Guy in 1995, 96, there was a very small little barber next door, 2 doors up, and he charged $20 for a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's fast forward a year. He's charging $45 for a haircut because people would walk out of Tony and Guy thinking it was too expensive and go to him, and he didn't want to be too cheap.
Yeah.
So my whole point is when we get salons in our area that are trying to push things up, let's all grow together. And I remember L'Oreal, the head of L'Oreal in Paris, once said to me, is that imagine if you were at an intersection and there was a roundabout, and there's a petrol station here, right? And a new petrol station is going to go here.
Mm-hmm.
Would he be paranoid that you're going to steal clients off him, as in petrol? People are going to go to that petrol station. And I didn't quite get it at the time. I thought the guy was going off on a bit of a tangent. I was like, okay, I love these eccentric, general managers. But what he was, and I really got it on the way home in the plane. And he said to me at the end of it, he said, no, we're going to teach people this is where you come for petrol.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I work in an area that's got 15 salons just within the block of where my salon is. And people often ask me, there's so many salons. I said, that's great. This is where you come for great hair.
Mm.
And, it's really simple. Our competitors aren't each other. We're not competitors. Our competitors are our clients investing in other things other than their hair. So I want my client redoing her hair, not buying a new pair of shoes. Because, and I'll give you this as the last tip, is that clients will often go out and spend $200 each on a dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. And I found this really interesting years ago. Clients will spend $200 plus each on dinner, or $100 plus on dinner. And, when it comes to their hair and their grooming, some people think clients don't want to spend, but they do want to spend. And I love this saying from Gucci. Aldo Gucci in 1963 come up with this great quote: quality is remembered long after price is forgotten. It's all about quality. And so what happens is if you focus on food goes through you, hair stays on your head, and you get to experience it for 8 weeks, it's really about redirecting to the client about what's important. And I charge for my consultations. I charge $100 for a consultation now, because I find the information that I'm imparting with this person is really valuable for that person to make a decision to come in with me or not. And I found that early on I wasn't charging, and people would come in and get the ideas of what I was sharing and then go off to a salon and get it done elsewhere. So this became for me really valuing the information that I'm giving and setting it out in a very clear way.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone wants to get my policy and procedures, I'm happily just email me and I'll send that through. And that has a lot of things on there in terms of one of the questions that you asked. But This is really great. This is really great.
It is. I've just shared that email in the comments, so anyone can access that if they would like.
We're going to have, tomorrow morning, I'll have you have mail.
Maybe drip feed them in. Just drip.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another absolutely fabulous consultation masterclass. And as you did see briefly on the screen just before I put that away, next week we will be back, same time, same day, so Wednesday. And next week is all about ego. And so, Dario, do you want to give just a slight little snippet into what that's going to be, and then we'll wrap things up.
I'll make it very slight. Ego for me was an interesting one because people think that the word ego means that it's a negative word or it means you've got a fat head, and it doesn't. You just have to understand your ego. And if you understand your ego and other people's ego, you'll be able to maneuver through it a lot more smoothly without getting offended. And I found that in hairdressing, we have egos because we care. And we're in this, it's about a persona. So anyone that has social, a social wall has an ego because you're putting your work out there. But it's about managing it. And if we can manage it, we'll reduce our anxiety. And it's not about what other people think, it's about what we think. So I'm going to explain some really cool tips and tricks on how you can manage your ego as well as your shadow ego.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely day if you're over in the UK and you've been joining us, or have a lovely evening for our Southern Hemisphere friends in Australia and New Zealand. And we hope to see you next week.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lou. High five again.
Woo!
Bang. Well done. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.